the great American fisherman. He'll fish anywhere. Anywhere there's water, Lord knows he'll be there.
Fishing with Roland Martin is brought to you by Shimano, performance-matched components for fishing any kind of fish, for any kind of fishing. The heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck. DuPont Power Lines, Stren, Prime Plus, Magna Thin, and Magnum 1440. Kmart Sports Centers, the #1 fishing tackle retailer in the USA. Before America goes fishing, America goes to Kmart. And by Minn Kota Electric Fishing Motors, the quiet power that catches fish. 16 times national champion, 9 times Bass Angler of the Year. This is Fishing with Roland Martin.
Georgia's Lake Lanier, West Point and Seminole, Center Hill and Dale Hollow, good fishing in the fall. Martin and Eufaula, he gonna fish 'em all.
I just heard a fish jump. That's a little bit better sound. You know, with the water temperatures in the low 50s, there's not much fish activity on the surface. But once you start seeing the birds feeding good and the shad flipping, the few shad it might be, or possibly a bluegill flipping, that means that you can go even shallower than what we're fishing now. We're basically still fishing deep water, and we're fishing fairly slow. So I just crawl it up on top of the limb, and I crawl it up on the limbs, give it slack, and feed it line, and just let it go back down again. Just let it go down to the bottom. Pick up on it. Wait a minute. There's one. I got one now. Ah, he hit it right on the bottom. He hit it right as I'm coming down. Come on. Okay. Hey, look at the size of him. Hey, he's a nice bass. He's a really good bass. Look at that thing. He's trying to jump. Hey, the cold water fish, he's really a nice about a 4-pound fish. There's nothing wrong with him at all, folks. Lake Seminole on the Florida, Alabama, Georgia line. Water reservoir, a 37,500 acre lake nestled on the confluence of the Flint and the Chattahoochee rivers. It's really my favorite lake of the whole Chattahoochee chain. It's the lower lake of the Chattahoochee chain. And it brings back fond memories because in 1970, I won my first BASS tournament on this great reservoir. You know, Seminole, what's so really neat about it, and why I really like to fish Seminole, is there's so many different varieties of patterns that you can fish. There's crystal clear water to fish, there's muddy water to fish, there's weed beds, there's rocks, there's timber, there's tree lines, there's stumps. There's just about every type of water condition and every type of pattern that you could ever think to catch a bass on. Today I'm fishing out of Jack Wingate's Lunker Lodge, and Jack and I go back a long time. In fact, Jack Wingate had fished some of the very first bass tournaments that Ray Scott ever held. And he sure helped me out on my first couple bass tournaments. In fact, he told me where to fish. And again, I hope today that maybe Jack will tell me a good spot to fish. All right. Woo! Love it. Well, Jack, it is a cold day.
Man,
it must be 30, 35 degrees this morning.
Listen, I'm glad I ain't got to go this morning. This is one of the mornings I'm glad I ain't got to go.
Well, when these big cold fronts hit, you know, of course, it was warmer, 60 and 70 degrees last week. What happens with these big cold fronts?
It just knocks these fish down, and they just shut their mouth just like, just locked down tight like this. Now, I think your best deal is to go to Spring Creek. You know, that old channel over there has always been the best, and put you on a jigging spoon and work that deep channel over there, about Rattlesnake Point, right in here now.
Okay.
Listen, there's 2 red markers, yellow markers on red markers on a couple of cypress trees right there.
Okay.
And if you'll get right in that area there and start there and go to working it out, you'll do some business.
Well, now, in the wintertime on these cold fronts, you catch just thousands of fish jigging spoons, don't you?
Yeah, they're just locked down right in that channel over there, and you do real well.
Well, listen, folks, don't go away, because we're going out on the fabulous Lake Seminole. And with Jack Wingate, he's not going to make it this year, but I've done a lot of good film work with Jack over the years. And, you know, I'm going to send my son maybe this year to your boys' camp, your fishing camp.
Good.
That's your 23rd year.
23rd year.
For your fishing school.
And we've put 96 boys a year through it.
That's really good, Jack. Well, I'm going to go catch some bass, and I'll talk to you after a while.
All right.
Thank you now.
Well, I'm almost up to that spot that Jack was talking about. You know, folks, you don't often see me fishing this cold weather. I live in South Florida, and I'm not accustomed to 40-degree weather. But nevertheless, when you go to a lake, particularly in January or February, you're liable to have a cold front like we have today.
And there's ways to fish a cold front. Now, we found those two little red markers on the edge of Spring Creek Channel where Jack was talking about. It's right here on the map, and here's my markers right here. So let me get up and grab it. I'm not even going to put the trolling motor down. I'm going to just come up and... Now, you got to be careful that you don't hit these trees too hard because the whole tops of the trees can fall out. People have been hurt, particularly here on Seminole and all these timbered reservoirs. They've been hurt by timber falling on them. I'm going to tie up. Now, Jack has put these little markers here, and as you notice, this channel comes through the timber. If you can visualize the deep creek channel of Spring Creek coming right through here, you see it going around the corner, and then back behind us, it makes a bend out this way. So you see it bending right out that way. Okay, folks, so let's talk a little bit about the philosophy of fishing wintertime bass. You know, first of all, when it's below 40 or 45 degrees, the bass are not very active. In fact, bass go to deep water. Now, I think what we found here is that we have the classic jigging techniques that are going to work the best. Here on Lake Seminole, it's particularly a great lake, particularly in the clear water parts of the lake, jigging spoons and jigs deep. Now, let me show you what I choose for today's fishing. I like this number 2 torpedo spoon. I've added a little split ring, a big, really about a 2-aught treble hook. It's really a heavy-duty treble hook, and this is 17-pound line. Okay, I'm going to jig in the channel itself. Now, another truth about wintertime bassing, anytime the water temperature is below 50 degrees, seek out clear water, because over the years I've been asked by many people how to catch fish in muddy, cold water. And I don't have an answer to that. Neither does any of the other fishermen, other bass fishermen I've ever talked to. No one has an answer for how to catch them out of muddy, cold water. But you can catch them out of clear, cold water. And that's what we have today here on Lake Seminole. Now, the pattern I'm fishing right now is the spoon jigging pattern. Let me explain. With the metabolism so low and the water temperature is about 55, or rather 45 degree water temperature, air temperature is possibly 55, but it was down to about 30 last night. So, with the water temperature at 45 degrees, the bass are very slow and lethargic. So you notice I'm not jigging very high. I'm actually in the channel. This is almost 30 feet of water right here. Behind me over here, it's about 25 feet. The fish are in the deep channel of Spring Creek itself. I'm not jigging the spoon very much. Now, in the summertime, you jig the spoon violently, and you catch white bass, you catch crappie, you catch stripers, you catch largemouth on a fast spoon. But in the wintertime, with water temperatures below 50 degrees, with the cold front condition we have today, you don't want to jig it but about a foot. And sometimes you'll just hold the spoon up and let it unwind. Sometimes the line will be twisted a little bit, and the spoon will actually turn and rotate as you hold it off the bottom. So I'm just going to keep jigging it. I have a pretty stiff rod. This is about a number 5 action rod. It's really a good stiff rod for spoon jigging. And again, you don't jig it very high. Watch that line. Be a line watcher. Now, sometimes when I'm spoon jigging, I'll jig with one hand, and then I'll switch over and I'll jig with the other hand. My right hand's a little stronger than my left hand, or sometimes I'll even jig with 2 hands because it's just a lot of jigging and it's kind of tiring holding your rod out. But watch that line. Be a line watcher, and when they hit the spoon, it's just a very small, little imperceptible strike. Now, here in Lake Seminole, you're going to find cold water conditions really paying off in December, January, and February. The Spring Creek Channel and jigging spoons accounts for thousands and thousands of bass being caught in the cold part of the wintertime. Now, again, as the cold front diminishes and it warms back up and you have water temperatures over 50 degrees, now you get into the spinnerbait techniques, you get into fishing the top of the channels, you get into fishing the edges of the grass, milfoil, and hydrilla. But right now, with it as cold as it is, we need to concentrate deep. Oh, there was one. Okay, now watch. Okay, now he hit it one time. Okay, now watch. Oh, I think he hit it again. I got him. There he goes. I love it. He just barely hit the thing. Boy, he's a good one. Ha, son! Oh, okay. Come on, boy. Boy, I know it's a bass. Might be a big crappie. Oh, son, look at that thing. I love it. Hey, that is a big bass. That's a nice big bass. Spring Creek special. I'll tell you, these Lake Seminole fish are real nice and dark colored. Now, you notice at 45 degrees, the bass are kind of lethargic. They'll jump a little teeny bit. They won't hardly jump. See that? He's just really really kind of weak because this water temperature, I'm talking about cold water. This water is about 40 degrees, feels like. Just a little bit warmer. That's about a 4-pound bass. That's a good fish. Gotta be careful. Now, perfect fish. Perfect condition for catching really nice fish. Cold fronts still persisting. Fish are deep on the channels. And until the water starts to warm up, they're going to be this way. Now, tomorrow there's predicted to be warmer weather. And the water temperature will warm up, and Jack has told us that at the upper end of Spring Creek, there's probably some warmer water. So we'll have a different pattern to show you in the next part of this show about how to catch fish just after the cold front. But right now we're in a cold front. Nice big 4-pound bass has just hit. And again, I want to reiterate just what I'm doing. I'm going to release that fish, and I'm going to talk about spoon jigging one more time. We're going to fish deep in the channel on the cold fronts, dropping the spoon all the way to the bottom. And when it's all the way to the bottom, you notice I'm just feathering it down, so if I have a strike on the way down, and just barely jigging that spoon up off the bottom, about a foot at a time. Now let me just show you some of the lures that I'd recommend. I'm going to show you some of my really favorite lures. The spoon that I'm fishing with right now is the #2 Torpedo. It's a blue fox lure. This is another favorite of mine. This is a Hopkins spoon, Hopkins 3/4 ounce. That's a real good combination. Another real good spoon is this lead slab spoon, if I can get it out. And I'll usually change the hook. I'll do a couple modifications on that slab. I'll put a bigger hook on it, and I'll usually put a split ring on it. That's about a 3/4 ounce slab spoon. And here's another neat lure. This is actually not really a spoon. It's called a sonar. It's a bait it's a vertically jigged bait, and it works good on a vertical jig. So here I've taken the sonar and I have it on the front. I have it on the very front hook right here, and it kind of makes it a more. I mean, something got my rod. I mean, whoa, son, man! I mean, something grabbed that rod out of my hand. I mean, he grabbed that spoon, son. It was just sitting there over my knee. I got one on. I got one on. I got one on. Come on up. Oh, it's a nice bass. Nice bass. I love it. I love it. I tell you, I was just sitting there. There's a whole school here. Jack was right. There was an entire school right here, and I was sitting there showing you guys the the spoon. And I mean, I wouldn't even have the rod in my hand. That fish almost got my rod. It was about $100, my best rod. Oh, he just got off. But you saw it. It wasn't big. It just got away. I can't believe it. I'm missing them all. But I tell you, I was right. It was a neat deal. I didn't catch him, but he got away at the last minute. But you saw him. He was, well, you know, when they're no-see-ums like that, when they get away like that, you can really say they're going on 10 pounds or 8 pounds or something like that. But we know he was really about 3. He was a good fish. Well, folks, here it is the next day. A much nicer day, by the way. You know, yesterday was like 50 degrees as a high. Today's it's up in the 60s. The water temperature has risen almost 10 degrees. In fact, it's about 56 degrees up this slough. We're away from Spring Creek a couple miles, and we're in warmer water. It's basically a more protected area, and it's a darker bottom, so therefore this is a faster area to warm up, and it's more protected too. So with this kind of water, this is kind of a good pre-spawn area. Fish will come in and stage in these deep ponds. Now, Seminole has limestone sink ponds, a series of ponds. It's from millions of years ago. The water actually ate away the limestone into depressions. So there's a series of depressions all through Spring Creek, some of them as deep as 30 feet deep, surrounded by nothing but 5 feet water. No channels in and out of these limestone sinks, so they're kind of separate lakes in themselves. One of the secrets of the slightly warmer water temperature we have today, 10 degrees warmer water, move fish up. We had yesterday fish deep on creek channels. Today we're now moving fish up much shallower. You have a lot of suspended fish in the timber and also on the hydrilla lines. So you find big trees like this, and I like to kind of just drop jigs and spinner baits or even a crankbait down into these areas. Water's about 15 or 18 feet deep, and there's no hydrilla right here. Now off to the edge, an excellent area on the edge of the ponds are the hydrilla banks. The shaded hydrilla banks are also a very good source of pre-spawn fish with water temperatures in the mid-50s. Anytime the water temperature's from like 52 to 56 degrees, I've thought many, many times of how many big fish I've caught on a jig. This jig emulates a crawfish. It looks like a big crawfish, and it's a good source of protein for the pre-spawning females. They like this high source of protein to get their eggs ready for hatching. And now their spawning is about a month away, so they're going to come up shallow in adjacent to these spawning areas. Also at the head of this drain, there's some big shallow flats. So these fish come into these deeper little pockets, warmer water. They seek out the warmest water they can find. And they're gobbling up as many crawfish as they can because the shad are non-existent. Basically, shad die out in the fall and the winter, and there's very few shad for the fish to eat in the springtime. So in the springtime, there's just a lot of good crawfish for the fish to eat, and it must be healthy for them because they sure do gobble them up in big style. The bigger females hit crawfish, and that's why we catch so many fish over 4 pounds. They're often female fish. We catch a lot of female, big pre-spawning female fish at the 50-degree water temperatures. Now, I'll drop it down into those trees and just kind of jig it. At the warmer water temperatures, once the water temperature gets up to, say, 56 degrees like it is right now, they'll hit much faster with a much quicker retrieve than they would at the 45-degree water temperatures we had yesterday. So remember, different water temperatures for different parts of the lake, up to 15 degrees. So folks, like here on Seminole, you can find a lot of different water temperatures in different parts of the lake. And probably on any lake, but there's one. Oh, son. Drive it. Come on. I got one on. I had one on a second ago. Okay, you got to keep working. I have 20-pound line. Uh-oh. I'm wrapped up. Oh, I have a fish on. Okay, that's why I have big line. Big line. Let's see if I can get him out. I got big line. That's all right. He's down in the tree. I'll get into that tree and I'll get him out. Hey, there's a good fish in that tree. I don't know where he is. Come on, boy. There he is. Okay, where'd he go? Come on. Oh, here he is. Here he is. Here he is. He's right here. He's right here, right by the tree. Oh, I tell you what, folks, these live oak trees are something. Come on, bass, get out of here. Son, look at that. Hey, that's a real big old fish. I love it. Okay, come on, the Lake Seminole special. Boy. Look at the size of him, folks. I mean, he's about 5 or 6 pounds. Big old bass and 20-pound line. I'm telling you what, you don't want to put too much pressure on these cold water bass. They're still powerful enough to break your line. Well, that's the best one for the day. The water's getting warmer and the fish are getting bigger, and that's kind of the way it goes. That is a big fish, son. That is all right. Whoo! Love it. The old standard channel. Well, he likes this. He just jumps every which way. But I tell you what, I like it too, folks, and I think you will too. Now let's go around to some more of these chandelier trees and make some more casts to more trees. The water temperature is 56 degrees. The depth here is 15 feet. He was down about 10 feet deep down in this tree. And you notice it's just a real big tree with really big branches. Suspended fish are kind of the deal at this temperature. Tell you what, folks, Lake Seminole is still one of my favorite lakes. Oh, there's one. Okay. Come on, bass. He's in the log. Come on out of there. Come on out, 20-pound line. Here he is. Ha, 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 ha. Ha, ha, ha. That's a good one. He isn't as big as the others, but he's a nice little fish. All in those logs, yeah. You see, this time of year, they just want to get deep. That's all they want to do. They don't want to jump much. It's cold water. They just want to dive down in the water just as far down as you can go. That's their sanctuary for the present, with the water temperature like it is. It's still pretty cold water. That's real cold. Well, folks, I tell you, this jig fishing is a lot of fun, and it's very productive with this water temperature. But the show's not over with. We still have some warmer water to fish and some more moderate patterns to fish, something a little bit shallower. So stay tuned. I'll take you to some new and different water. Okay, folks, here we are, the third and final pattern for today's show, fishing Lake Seminole. The water temperature is about 61 degrees. It's much warmer water. We're way back in a lily pad pond. Much warmer water, it's fairly clear water. It's a pre-spawn condition. And looking at that beaver dam over there, that beaver house, reminds me of the very first BASS tournament I fished here in Lake Seminole, February of 1970, and I won it on the beaver dam pattern, the beaver house pattern. I had a small little flat bottom range of boat, and I went way back in these little sloughs like we've gone today, way back through the lily pads, just about as far as you could go. And I actually went over a couple little shallow beaver dams that were across some sloughs, and just started fishing with spinnerbaits and worms, much like I'm fishing now, fishing these shallow little sloughs, shallow warm water pre-spawn sloughs. Some of these sloughs have holes in them. Now it's hard to see what we have here, but this little spot of open lily pads right here is 8 feet of water. And that's one of the patterns for today's fishing. It's a little bit deeper spot. It's a holding spot for the pre-spawn bass. And, oh, son, I got a good one now. Ah, darn, broke my line. Broke my line, boy, 20-pound line, and you talking about a big fish too, son. Oh, well, tell you what, it's time to leave. Let me just explain, though, a few things about today's fishing. That was a good fish, it really was. It broke 20-pound line, it was just a real good fish. Right here in the lily pads is certainly a pattern for when the water temperature gets right. But the secret in fishing southern reservoirs and the secret in fishing early spring is temperature. Temperature is the key to today's fishing. 45 degrees, it's cold, the fish are in deep creek channels. You jig them slow with a spoon. 50, 55 degrees, the fish are much more active. You get in them with jigs a little faster, or with a crankbait, running it kind of slow on the edges of the timber, suspended in the timber. Now that it's 60 degrees, the fish are practically spawning. Look for the spawning flats. Use a much faster bait, a spinner bait, or even a fast-moving rattle wrap type of lure. You'll catch some big bass. So, folks, it's been great fishing with you. Come on down to Jack Wingate's Lunker Lodge and enjoy some of these Lake Seminole lunker bass.
Fishing with Roland Martin has been brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck. Shimano, performance matched components for fishing any kind of fish, for any kind of fishing. DuPont Power Lines, Stren, Prime Plus, Magna-Thin, and Magnum 1440. Kmart Sports Centers, the #1 fishing tackle retailer in the USA. Before America goes fishing, America goes to Kmart. And by Minn Kota Electric Fishing Motors, the quiet power that catches fish.
He fished Toll, Okeechobee, Kissimmee, and Rodman Hole, Georgia's Lake Lanier, West Point and Seminole, Center Hill and Dale Hollow, good fishing in the fall. Martin and you follow.
Roland's upfitted vans and trucks by Choo Choo Custom Automotive Conversions, Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Lake and Barkley, Sardis, Ross, Burnett, Toledo Bend, Rayburn, and Conroe you won't forget. He loved Lake of the Ozark, he loved Table Rock, bull shows on the White River, he ain't gonna never stop. He's a great American.
First bass tournaments that Ray Scott ever held, and he sure helped me out on my first couple bass tournaments. In fact, he told me where to fish, and again, I hope today that maybe Jack will tell me a good spot to fish. All right, woo, love it. Well, Jack, it is a cold day.
Man,
It must be 30, 35 degrees this morning.
Listen, I'm glad I ain't got to go this morning. This is one of the mornings I'm glad I ain't got to go.
Well, when these big cold fronts hit, you know, of course, it was warmer, 60 and 70 degrees last week. What happens with these big cold fronts?
It just knocks these fish down, and they just shut their mouth just like just locked down tight like this. Now, I think your best deal is to go to Spring Creek. You know that old channel over there has always been
in deep water, and we're fishing fairly slow. So I just crawl it up on top of the limb, and I crawl it up on the limbs, give it slack, and feed it line, and just let it go back down again. Just let it go down to the bottom, and pick up on it. Wait a minute, there's one. I got one now. Ah, he hit it right on the bottom. He hit it right as I'm coming down. Come on. Okay, hey, look at the size of him. Hey, he's a nice bass. He's a really good bass. Look at that thing, he's trying to jump. Hey, the cold water fish, he's really a nice about a 4-pound fish. There's nothing wrong with him at all, folks. Lake Seminole on the Florida, Alabama, Georgia line. Water reservoir, a 37,500 acre lake, nestled on the confluence of the Flint and the Chattahoochee.
He's a great American fisherman, he'll fish anywhere. Anywhere there's water, Lord knows he'll be there.
Fishing with Roland Martin is brought to you by Shimano, performance matched components for fishing any kind of fish, for any kind of fishing. The heartbeat of America, today's Chevy truck. DuPont Power Lines, Stren, Prime Plus, Magna Thin, and Magnum 1440. Kmart Sports Centers, the #1 fishing tackle retailer in the USA. Before America goes fishing, America goes to Kmart. And by Minn Kota Electric Fishing Motors, the quiet power that catches fish. 16 times national champion, 9 times Bass Angler of the Year. This is Fishing with Roland Martin.
George's Lake Lanier, West Point and Seminole, Center Hill and Dale Hollow, good fishing in the fall. Martin and Eufaula, he gonna fish 'em all.
I just heard a fish jump. That's a little bit better sound. You know, with the water temperatures in the low 50s, there's not much fish activity on the surface. But once you start seeing the birds feeding good and the shad flipping, if the few shad it might be, or possibly a bluegill flipping, that means that you can go even shallower than what we're fishing now. We're basically still fishing rivers. It's really my favorite lake of the whole Chattahoochee chain. It's the lower lake of the Chattahoochee chain. And it brings back fond memories because in 1970, I won my first BASS tournament on this great reservoir. You know, Seminole, what's so really neat about it, and why I really like to fish Seminole, is there's so many different varieties of patterns that you can fish. There's crystal clear water to fish, there's muddy water to fish, there's weed beds, there's rocks, there's timber, there's tree lines, there's stumps. There's just about every type of water condition and every type of pattern that you could ever think to catch a bass on. Today I'm fishing out of Jack Wingate's Lunker Lodge, and Jack and I go back a long time. In fact, Jack Wingate had fished some of the very first